Hello, we're John and Elizabeth. We are making our way across Stark Bay on board Corrick. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you. We made it up to Ditchisham, picked up a mooring buoy just off the ferryboat inn, went ashore last night, and it was all very pleasant. And this morning, as you can see behind me, it is glassy calm, which I guess is a bit of a part of the story of the last couple of weeks, ever since we really started coming south. It's been a mixture of really lovely weather, interspersed with a series of low pressures coming through and therefore big winds. So stuck in Conway for a little while, got out of Padstow early in order to avoid a southwesterly, spent a fair bit of time on the River Fowl, and we're getting better at finding things to do when we're holed up with the weather. So we had a very nice day pottering around in Falmouth Harbour itself. Spent a couple of days up the river and we managed to do a bit of boat handling, which is great. But interspersed amongst that has been a couple of busy old sails, not going terribly hard up to windward, basically choosing the opportunities to come downwind. But we'll spend a day or two here. Looks really rather terrific. So Elizabeth, how did your first departure go?
It was okay, under the careful guidance of John. It's good.
And what are we going to do now?
Well, we're going to have a bit of a pootle up and down the river, so I can get a bit of a feel of how the boat handles.
As we headed up the river, the wind then a little bit lighter. We just carried on doing a bit of tacking and jibing in reasonably light airs, and somebody once said to me, anybody can make a boat go fast when it's windy. It's keeping it moving when it's light that takes the skill and the attention to detail. So we had a good time doing that.
I thought it might be worth just introducing this section on sailing off and sailing on. As I say, don't see very much of it these days, but worth practicing if you get the chance. The footage that we've got of this is all a bit uninspiring on account of the fact that we did a couple of attempts, but by the time we got to one that we were going to film, the wind had died very slightly, so it doesn't look great. The big takeaway that isn't mentioned in the text or in the speech that I put over here is the choice of head sail or mainsail. Basically, when you're alongside in the berth that you're going to be in, if the wind is forward of the beam, you really need to be using the mainsail. If the wind is going to be abaft the beam, you need to be using the head sail, and be prepared to scandalize the main, and I'll show you how to do that, but also to roll the head sail away really quickly, or drop it if you don't have a roller. But it was a good thing to do. These days, diesel engines are terribly reliable, and therefore you very rarely see anybody sailing on and off a jetty, except in extremely small boats. But it's not a bad thing to practice, because you don't want to be doing it for the first time in your life when you don't actually have an engine. So I've got this jetty here up the River Fowl, and it's nearly completely empty. I've got reasonably benign conditions. I've got a bit of tidal stream, but not much. So it makes sense to have a bit of a go at it. Let's see how it goes. We'll sail off and then sail back on. We're up the river. It's still flooding very gently, but it has died right off. It can be a bit tricky on this pontoon. And we've got a gentle southeasterly breeze, and the line of the jetty is north-south, so we'll be going up into the wind, and therefore we're going to be using the head sail both to get away and to get back on. If tomorrow, if the conditions are a little bit different, I might try doing this with the head sail as well. In terms of preparation, I'm going to have the engine running, I'm going to have all the nav gear on. I'm going to rig a line that I can slip one line, and I've got this one here, which is going forward through a block that is on the cap shroud and then back to here, which will allow me to hold the boat because I'm round 2 cleats quite tight into the jetty. I'm going to hoist the main. I'm going to keep a reef in it. There's a reef in it already. I don't see a good reason to shake that out. I shouldn't need a lot of power. And I am going to, when we hoist it, I'm going to scandalize it. That is, I'm going to let it go up as far as it will go on the extension on the kicking strap, so that there's no weight in it. I'm then going to get rid of the normal berthing lines and then put some weight into the main and let go the slip line, and we should just drift off. You may or may not be able to see this terribly well, but I've got the kicker off completely, and that has pushed the boom up, and that means that the main, I mean, the wind is right ahead of us, but because the boom is up, there is very little chance of the power going onto the main. So I've let the lines off. As it is, the tide is drifting us out, and I am just going to be able to take that line off, pull it in here. That's us free. And then sheet in on the main, get the tiller over. And it's gone very light on me. Isn't that just the thing, isn't it? I'm just going to wait for a little gust of breeze to come back in, but we are drifting off on the tide. There is just the tiniest amount in the main. Well, as luck would have it, we've got a tiny bit of breeze now, so we're just going to go for a sail with the main sail only. We're going to sail out a little bit and then make an approach to the jetty. Because the main is doing all the work, I'm now going to start turning up.
Fair to say here, because the wind was quite light and the tide was also light, the angle that we were approaching at looks really rather extreme. It looks like about 90 degrees. If the wind was a bit stronger, that angle would reduce and it would look a bit more conventional. But we were moving very slowly.
Lose all of the main, so kick her off. Main goes up in the air. Okay, you're going to have to slow us down. Can you take this line here, Elizabeth? This blue one. Drop the blue one over the cleat. That's it. Well, we don't often sail in rain.
Well, we don't.
Well, so
So,
oh,
it is quite grim.
it's very fluky here in the harbour itself, and we are probably significantly under canvas. But only a few minutes ago we were seeing 25 knots of breeze across the deck.
Yeah, at least 25.
So let's play it cautious, get our heads out of the harbour, and then take it from there.
My preference today would be in front of a wood-burning stove, although it's quite warm, and having a roast dinner.
Roast dinner in front of a wood burner.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if I can dial that up for you in Mevagizzy.
Thank you very much.
It's a little bit lumpier than I thought it would be, maybe because we haven't got rid of quite all of the swell from earlier. But it seems okay. It seems to be clearing up over to the southeast. Well, I think that's the first time that we've ever turned round. we got out, and it was
initially it was really good.
really good. We were doing 6 knots, almost due south, which is what we were expecting. Southeasterly breeze going into the south. Put the tack in, and the wind died, and it was due to go light from the south, but it wasn't. It stayed in the southeast, and it went very light to the point where we were making no headway at all.
We were going backwards.
We were going backwards, and there was quite a bit of swell, which meant that even when we did try to motor in towards it, it was unpleasant. And I just thought, well, you said it first, and I think you were right. This 30 miles of that would have been just unpleasant, and it was honking down with rain. And I think I've discovered that my waterproofs aren't.
Got a soggy bum now.
Nice.
So
But-
the order of the day is hot tea,
Coffee,
and a chocolate biscuit.
chocolate biscuit, and a bit of a think, and we'll look at the weather and make a decision. But maybe we were a bit feeling as if we'd gone slightly stir crazy up at Ruin Creek, although I loved it up there.
I loved it up there. But I think the thing is, we've now discovered that we actually like sailing aspects.
Yeah,
But this
it was nice. It was exciting sailing to get going with, but it just dropped to nothing, and we were, I think, facing many hours of motoring. I hoped it would drop off, swing round, but neither of those looked like they were happening.
And the rain was quite biblical.
The rain was
That is
biblical.
the first time we've had that for 5-6 months. I have to say.
So, yeah, certainly during the day and it rained a bit when we were locked up in Stornoway and Loch Boysdale, but
Not
we hadn't been
so
out sailing in rain like that.
Yeah, we've
No.
been spoiled.
We've been very spoilt, but it's beginning to look like it's clearing, so we might revisit St Mawes. Well, we've had an exceptionally uncomfortable night.
It was quite rolling.
Well, yeah, the weather forecast was for it to be in the south and the southwest, going into the northwest this morning, and it went in earlier. So where we were in St Mawes, we were bearing the brunt of it, and we were up forward, and you just hear everything. It's really windy. Well, it wasn't horribly windy, but it sounded windy.
And I think when it's dark, it makes it sound worse.
So we neither has slept very well. Got up this morning about 6.
Which was lovely.
But then the weather was gusting anywhere between 15 and 20 knots from the northwest inside the harbour, and I wasn't sure if that was just a little bit funneled or actually we were a little bit sheltered. It was difficult to tell, so we changed down the head sail to the heavy weather jib, and we rigged the third reef. Although we don't have that rigged at the moment, we are now making our way 070 towards Plymouth. I think we're going to miss out Mevagissey and Foy,
Which is a bit of a shame.
which is a lot of a shame, but it is forecasting 7s and 8s for the next couple of days, so we're taking this opportunity to get ourselves west and tucked up somewhere, ideally, where we won't go stir crazy, hopefully.
It was fairly breezy all the way to Dodman Point, but as we started to cross St Austell Bay, the sea state died down quite a bit, and we have 2 reefs just in at the minute, and we took one out and carried on.
We are entering Plymouth. The breakwater is just half a mile ahead of us. Last time I was here last couple of times I was here, it was finishing up fast net races. Some of them done well, some of them done not so well. But it's been a fairly fast passage, if a little bit breezy in places. Very glad that we changed down. Very glad. But we're probably 40 minutes away from getting alongside.
Get the wheels down.
Wheels down.
We were very well looked after by friends who took us home for a bed and supper, and we watched the storm go through from the top of their garden. Well, the following day, the storm had gone through, and we returned back on board late afternoon. And it would have been possible to go at this point, but there was still quite a big swell in the outer harbour, so we strolled round Plymouth. The following morning, much clearer, drier day, we managed to very quickly exit from QAB Marina, head into the harbour just behind the breakwater, and we hadn't been motoring for much more than about 5-10 minutes when we were able to get the main and the head sail up and get sailing, and we got ourselves out through the eastern entrance to the breakwater. There was, and this vindicated the decision not to go the night before, still quite a significant bit of swell, but the breeze was down to 18 to 20 knots, so 2 reefs, and we kept the heavy weather jib on and made our way to Salcombe. It was a quick and breezy sail to Salcombe. Salcombe has a bit of a reputation because there is a bar at the entrance, and we were arriving pretty much at low water, but the wind was from the west, the swell was negligible, and because we crept in very close to the side, we got over the bar, which is good. Very pleasant night on a mooring buoy in Salcombe, and then the following day we got going, not horribly early, but a reasonably early start to make the best of the tide. Quite bouncy up until the point where we got around Start Point, and then we cut into Start Bay and had a broadish reach all the way across the bay. Really very lovely indeed. We managed to sail right up to the entrance of Dartmouth, and then came up the river, motoring a little bit, and picked up a mooring buoy up at Ditcham, where we spent the night, and in the morning it was really very calm indeed. I think we'll spend a day or two here.